pusher on the elite being reptilians. He's still
Yes.
very much into that. But I think a lot of what he's talking about is the New World Order.
Yeah.
You know, the cabal and what they're doing and how to bring them down. But it's all driven by them being a different race of people.
Yeah.
I tend to think they are. They're not us, right?
No,
Whether
no,
that
they're not
means
I've
us.
it's
got a new
just
theory.
mental or like demonic takeover. I mean, I don't know what it means, but they're just not us.
No, no, they're not. They're different to us, aren't they? Very different. I
Yeah,
think that
I've
low
never sat down and
vibrational.
like had a conversation about how I want to go and take over the neighbor's house and give them rules to live under. It's
So let me just say good morning, Tartary Australia, and welcome to the podcast. We have just started on a conversation because Guy did an interview on David Icke's channel this week. And so we're just seeing how Guy went and what David Icke was talking about these days. So give me a quick summary, Guy.
Well, they're very. I think Tartaria was quite a new subject for them, and I did ask why it's not been raised before, and it was just not on their radar, which
That's so
I
weird.
found strange. Yeah, I
Yeah.
found strange, but it's certainly on it now because they started talking about buildings in America, and they named a few, and um, and suddenly they could see that the buildings I'd been talking about in the book were the buildings that they're talking about in America. And it seemed to connect some dots. So I'm
Weird,
hoping we'll
man.
see something. Yeah, I'm hoping we'll
I mean,
see something now.
it's like 4 years of old knowledge now. I'm so
I
It
know,
surprised
is.
that,
right?
you know,
Jeez, Dave,
it
catch up, mate.
maybe it's
But what,
just not part of the agenda for David Icke.
Yeah, I don't know. I
yeah, he's
interviewed him like a few
very,
years ago, but I can't remember if we talked about Tartaria because I put the video up, and the next day I woke up and the whole channel was gone. It like it
oh,
never existed. It just disappeared into thin
oh,
air.
really?
Yeah, it might have been 2021. Like that was when they were like really going berserk with their
Mm.
censorship. But he was great, you know. He came on my channel and we had a chat, and but yes,
And the video was just taken down.
yeah, the whole channel. It
The
was
channel went.
the whole channel went, and it had no strikes or anything, and it just like no emails, no nothing. It just disappeared. It was
Oh
like,
my God. I
geez.
had
Are
that
you
happen
nervous?
to me the other day. Well, the same thing
You
happened
shouldn't
to
make
me.
a
I was
mistake.
interviewed by this guy called Billy Watson, and he shared the video with me, and I put it up, no problem at all. He's got taken down within a couple of hours.
That's happened
Mm.
a couple of times, twice recently, isn't it, Kel? Like I'll put it up on my
Mine gets
channel and we'll be fine. Kelly will put it up and it'll get taken down, and mine's still up, but it's the exact same video.
Yeah, it's
it's so and
weird.
like yeah,
It's
my and
weird.
why bother taking it off my channel? My channel's just like basically an archive of our videos. It's not like it doesn't grow, it doesn't change, it doesn't move. So it means like, yeah, mine has definitely got a different algorithm to it. I can't put up videos. Our videos, and Campbell's got the most massive audience compared to mine, and they go up fine. So there really is an algorithm that like wraps around you with these
Yeah,
channels.
yeah.
Yeah, and
Do you think it's
probably
going to change? Do you think
come
you know,
on
people keep
today,
talking about
man.
this,
The
don't
Orange
they?
Man's in. Everything changes. Well, we hope.
Oh,
But
I
he
keep being
did.
told there's going to
They
be a
took
fake
down
assassin.
TikTok. Did you hear that? Like
Yeah,
they banned
yeah.
it, and then he got it back up like within
Mm,
2 hours or so. He stepped as soon as he took office, he put it straight back up. So that's
mm,
good, I think, because
yeah.
it was like when they took TikTok down, there's 7 million people basically make money off TikTok, like their full income in America. So they put 7 million people out of work, basically. The government.
Yeah. And
Is
there's so much good information on TikTok.
TikTok.
I mean, I know there's a problem with the kids and this social media, but like, you know, a lot of TikTok, I don't have TikTok, but a lot of it is just people recounting exactly what's happening in their backyard. You know, it's just a lot of.
And as long as you like spend a little bit of time just getting your algorithm, you know, like searching for things you want and the algorithm's fine. Like when I first went on it, you get all the weird, you know, colorful people and, you know, booty shaking and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
Now I've trained, I think it's great.
It's very quick to detect what you're looking at.
Yeah.
As soon as you stop and look at something and actually, you know, watch the full thing or maybe have a look at more of their videos, you're then immediately hit with more of the same, aren't you? The algorithm's fast on TikTok. It detects straight away what you're looking at.
Totally, man.
Yeah. I mean, people are worried about TikTok spying on them or it being a Chinese, you know, spyware. Well, like, honestly, China can spy on you very much without TikTok. Like TikTok, with TikTok is not China spying on you. Like that's
Facebook.
Yeah.
Hello.
Yeah, absolutely. Throw your phone away. I mean, Pete, I've been told several times that your mobile phone, if you've got a smartphone, it's taking a screenshot. Sorry, not a screenshot. It's taking a picture about every 20 seconds.
Yeah. I saw a video where they had one. What they do, I think they darked out the room or they used some special filter and you could see this thing, taking every 20 seconds.
Yeah. So, hey guys, so I have some new theories I want to chuck into the mix. So, but first of all, like what a weird world we're in right now. Let's do a quick weird world update because since we spoke last, there's been like a week and a half, and God, you've got the LA fires. Weird aspect of the LA fires, and Cam, I don't know if you saw this, was a video like a whole heap of people reporting that there was no fire.
Just here's a little video for the people that swear to God LA is on fire. I just got off the 91. I'm going to the 110. It's smoky where the fires were. Like if y'all could see on the video how it looked cloudy in the background, like way up there. That's not even near us. This is Los Angeles, you guys. Well, honestly, I'm passing through Gardena on the freeway toward LA. Do y'all see fire? There are no fires in Los Angeles.
So this is to the person who called me a liar when I said I see no fires. I see only blue sky. Do you see that? Where are the fires? I'm gonna take a walk now just because somebody called me a liar. And where's the wind? There's no wind. There's the beautiful sunshine, beautiful skies. You see that? And I'm in Studio City where everybody's fear-mongering, saying there are fires. Where the fuck is the fires? There's a fire station. They're relaxed. See? Nobody's rushing anywhere. So I live in a different reality, and someone who calls you a liar, they're in another reality, but they don't understand it because they haven't done the inner work. They live in the 3D reality. So where you see all the blue sky? See all that? This is the Hollywood Hills right there. Hollywood Hills, that's the valley. So you tell me, where are the fires?
And then the people are making videos about there being sort of like an experiencing of this like split in the perception of reality, because some people houses are burnt and other people standing there going, what are you talking about? There's no fire. So that's a weird like,
yeah.
I've heard that, but I haven't seen any of the videos yet. But I did have a bit of a look, but yeah, man. I mean, there's so many questions, but it also just looks like a complete replay of what we've seen before.
does,
Yeah.
doesn't
in
it?
Hawaii and Paradise. And
Annoying.
I saw something this morning, and BlackRock are already out door knocking, offering people
Yeah.
money for their houses.
Good
Just
old
follow the
BlackRock.
process. Yeah, the same process. They go in there. They've got people now showing you overlaying the smart city trail wrap right through the path of fire. You've got the insurance company months earlier blocking all the fire insurance. So that's there.
Mm,
Yeah.
The blue thing. You've got the
yeah.
melted cars and houses, but all the trees are fine. Like you got all that. It is actually repetitive and annoying, and it makes it's hard not to be fucking mad at this whole
Mm,
situation we're in, that we're so vulnerable that they can basically do anything with zero care, and it's
mm.
just so annoying. I
Mm.
mean, it's
At,
hard to
at,
keep it down, man.
I was just going to say at the bottom of every rabbit hole, there's a black rock with a van guarding it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yes, I saw that. Yes.
That's a good one, that isn't it? I love that.
Yeah,
Nice.
that's funny. And
Yeah.
then we've got Trump coming in, and we've got all of his executive orders happening, and then we've got like that whole fog thing, and then I don't know what's the
Mm,
update with the orbs in the sky, and
The
you've got all
orbs,
this
yeah.
stuff happening in America.
Orbs are still going. Yeah, they're playing that story out. But I mean, it's a hard one because there's quite a few videos out there, but there's not like, I don't think there'd even be hundreds of them, to tell you the truth. But they just get replayed and replayed and reposted
yeah.
and posted, and so it seems like there's a lot more going on than there is. But there's definitely still weird stuff going on in the skies. There's the fog, which they're trying to work out. I think someone got it analyzed, and what did it have? Oh, I can't even remember what it had in it. But there was an operation back in the 50s that the US Army went over San Francisco and sprayed this chemical in the fog,
Mm,
and apparently it's the same substance. But I mean, we're only 20 days into the year,
mm.
and we've just
Yes,
had
fucking
everything,
annoying.
right?
It's all happening, isn't it? It's like they're running out of time, so they're trying to do as much as they can in one go.
And in Australia, like on my feed from Australia, this is like new virus alert, new fucking pathogen
Mm,
alert, new code. It's just like, oh my God. And I saw even the NHS in the UK were putting out all these like messages saying if you don't have all your
mm,
COVID shots, you're gonna get this new HMPV XYZ blah 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 thing. And
yeah.
it's just like they're still really pushing that fucking annoying, boring blah blah blah. Um, so yeah, I mean, it's been a wobbly start to 2025.
The doctor's surgeries over here actually have signs up now saying that to financially support your local GP, get your jabs.
Oh my God.
That they're actually promoting the fact that they need the money, they need
They get
your
paid
financial support.
for
Yeah,
doing it.
yeah, and that
That
they're asking for your help by getting vaccinated.
that's fucking weird. That's a
Yeah,
whole new
yeah,
take.
different angle altogether, isn't it?
My
It
God, who
is.
Yeah,
even would fall for that? Who are
yeah.
they even aiming this at?
I guess the people that sit there on a
Yeah.
regular basis that come out with carrier bags full of drugs that, one for an ailment, the other one to counteract the side effects, and one that works with that one. And
When to wake
yeah,
up, when to go to sleep. Yeah.
that's
And
it.
did you see that Trump has taken Mel Gibson and Sylvester Stallone
I
and some other actor to clean up Hollywood? Did you see that?
I did see something about that. That's crazy. That is crazy. Yeah, who
Right.
was the other one? Was it John Voight, or it was like an older
Yeah,
dude?
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Well,
Yeah.
that's oh, what's her name? That's what
Oh,
Angelina
Angelina
Jolie's
Jolie.
father, isn't it?
Yes.
Yes, it
Yes.
is.
Yeah,
Yes, good point.
yeah,
So, it's a weird thing with Trump watching it because on one hand, I'm really certain he's just part of the bloodline. I'm really certain about that. On the other hand, he's taking all these actions that it would be like appearing to do all the things that, like the truther community would be wanting him to do.
yeah,
But he's doing it in a way that's still engaging the same people to do the cleanup. You know what I
yeah,
mean? Like
yeah,
it's following the same, like you
Mm.
can sort of feel with how it's working that
Yeah,
it could just
I
be
agree. I
a
mean,
deceptive overlay.
those actors are probably his best picks, right? But what a weird thing to do, right? Pick actors
yeah,
to put up Hollywood. But they've all been at least outspoken a lot, you know.
Yeah.
But yeah, a lot of his cabinet are, you know, part of the ZJ people, and you know, friends with the bankers and all this kind of stuff.
Mm,
And obviously, Elon has a few very
yeah.
question marks around him.
He does,
Yeah,
doesn't he?
So it's going to be
Yeah.
interesting, man. It's going to be a
and then
interesting next 7 days, right?
A
I mean, if
false
you want to
prophet, maybe.
arrest everyone, you know what I mean? Like, send in the fucking police, man. Don't send in an actor. If you want to clean up Hollywood, go and friggin' sort it out. Like, it's
Yeah.
not like it's this big
Come on,
mystery.
man. They got
Go and
Rambo.
yes, go send
Yeah.
in
Yeah.
Rambo
Look what
to
he
sort
can do
out
on his
Hollywood.
own. Yeah.
Whatever.
Yeah. Where
Anyway,
are
it's
we then? Where are we with it all though? Do you think, I mean, with the people saying that it's not happening and the people videoing it and saying it is, and obviously Mel Gibson's now said that his own house
His
has
house
been
went up,
burnt down.
apparently, yeah.
So where are we with it? Do we think it's happening or do we think it's CGI? What's
oh
going
God,
on?
there's never a black and white, is there? It's like
No.
all of those things. It's like the coming together of everything. It's the CGI, it's real, it's not real, it's paid actors, it's real people, it's social media. You know, it's all this big mesh of presentation. You know, they've got so many avenues now just to present any concept and it be like backed up by all sorts of different avenues. Like you just can't, you know, honestly, all you can do is trust your own eyes. That's to
Wow.
me,
To a
you would have to
point.
go there and see it for yourself.
Yes.
Yeah, the actual experience. Because I saw a video this morning and it was supposed to be all the firefighters and that finding animals in the fire and rescuing them. And, you know, it was all this very nice, you know, cuddly kind of video. And it was AI. It looked so real, man. It like you would not know that it wasn't AI, but it was. It was crazy.
Yeah.
And so if they could do that, they can do anything. Like, and
Yeah.
it's like
Yeah.
I said, they've got control of all the social media and the TV. So they just put it all out, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. And then like you come to places. So behind me is Cairo, everyone. Just so you know, I wanted to do a video last week with the boys with the pyramids behind me, but we couldn't align it. So sadly, you're back in Cairo, which is in itself, as you can kind of see, a massive decaying Tartarian empire. One of the biggest, actually. It's way bigger than Melbourne. It's a big, big, old Tartarian empire for sure. But yeah, you travel these countries and you go through and like there is no connection to the shit that we see. Like there is no connection. They're not talking about it. The weather's not doing anything. There's no friggin' drones or orbs or like there's no funky like you know things cities burning down. Like it's not concentrated on this area at all. They literally all their focus may be on the conflict beside them, you know, next
Yeah.
door in their neighboring countries. But like honestly, this life just goes on and on and on without having any connection to this, you know, deceptive underbelly of reality. It's just not present at all. And you think, okay, well, we are in literally a bubble in the West. We've got our own intranet going on around us, you know?
Yeah. We
There's
found
no
out the
way.
same thing last year when we went traveling. No one
Yep.
in other countries knew what you know, they didn't care.
So it's just really interesting. I mean, like we were in Luxor the other day and it hasn't rained for 17 years. You know, and life
God.
goes on and on as normal. The kids are, you know, there's poverty everywhere. People are just, you know, haggling for they're haggling for £100, which is like $1 or something. You know, it's like life just looks like it hasn't changed for eons here in these spaces. You know, so but we're in the West, it's like everything's sped up, all the information or the content or
Yeah.
the effectiveness or the breaking it down. Like you could never make an income coming out of Egypt on these topics.
Do you
Like,
think they're restricted then there? Do you think the information they get is restricted?
yeah, I mean, like every single guide we have, because you need guides to do all of this stuff. Like every single guide we've had has gone to a 2-year diploma. You can't be a guide in Egypt without going through this 2-year government diploma, and you get a license at the end of it. And in those 2 years, you are programmed to talk about exactly what the government talks. So many times on the trip, our individual guides, of course, because I'm asking a million questions, obviously.
Yeah, I bet. Yeah.
And so many times they're saying, I can't talk about that. I can't talk about that. I'll lose my license. I
Oh,
can't
wow.
like some random thing like I mentioned like the use of machinery to like the use of machine and technology and this energy that they had to do all of this, and like we can't talk about that. We'll lose our license. There was a hieroglyphic and it looked like it had the internet symbol on it, and it was like we can't talk about that. And I was like, wow, so you've actually been given a list of topics you can't talk about with the tourists. And they're like, absolutely, we'll immediately lose our license. And even when we were out of the pyramid or out of the temple, back in the hotel or somewhere completely out of it, they still would not talk about it because it's so ingrained in them that they will lose their license. So yes, history here has been completely programmed and it's completely controlled by the government. Yeah. And of course,
loss, man. Jeez.
if they lose their license, they lose their income. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So like it's got economic control as well because of the poverty.
Well,
so
I suppose that's
in
similar to
trouble.
what the doctors were having to do during the pandemic. A lot of them knew that they weren't doing the right thing, but were going to be struck off if they said anything. So I guess it's just totally controlled, isn't it?
Yeah. I did see the oldest mirrors, ironically, after our last conversation, in the Cairo Museum. There's the oldest mirrors that they've found, and they just look like mirrors, but they're like obsidian, like it's like polished.
Yeah.
Obsidian. Yeah.
And in that same museum is the Benben stone, or a Benben stone, which was really interesting. And even then, the guy was like, this material doesn't come from Earth. It's a meteor. It came to Earth as a meteor, and it's the hardest material, and it's got full of hieroglyphics on it. And they're like, we don't know how they cut this rock. We don't know how that's done, but we're not allowed to talk about it. All I can tell you, it has been determined it was from a meteor. But I mean, it's trippy to go and see the Benben stone. That's like a coveted object within the true community, huh? And I mean, I don't remember, Cam, is there more than one?
Well, the one in England's the Stone of Scone, isn't it? Is that right? The one that they sit on for the coronation?
Yes.
Yeah. So I think some people might call that the Benben stone, but yeah, I don't know. As far as I knew, there was only one. I haven't done a lot of research, but what's his name? God's Flammy. Red Earthman mentions it a lot. Yeah.
And did you see today that yesterday on Sky News they announced that the moon has become a protected endangered heritage site? They've listed the moon as a protected endangered heritage site.
Oh, I can't believe that. So we can't go camping there now.
They can't go camping anymore. It's protected.
Oh.
Yeah. And this
man.
stupid chick from Melbourne, like some university expert, was like, yeah, well, like in 20 years' time, all the relics in the moon will be just like destroyed by all the visitors, so it's really important that we protect the moon. It's the first thing we've ever listed on the heritage listing that's in outer space. And I was like, oh my God, this just sounds so retarded. I cannot believe this is what's going on. So, yeah, I mean, crazy shit, right? But you can see how that would link to, say, Elon and Trump's plan.
It's part of the narrative, right? It's part of the space invasion, narrative. They definitely look like they're building up to that. There's everything's space and disclosure. Even what's his name? That annoying dude. Stephen Greer came out.
Oh yeah.
2 days ago and said in 72 hours we're getting full disclosure. It's all going to come out. I think that's today, but I mean, I think he says that every 3 or 4 years, doesn't he? But they're definitely building up to something. Oh, and there was another story come out about these Air Force people who are saying they've seen a UFO that got retrieved, like this egg-shaped UFO. It looks very much like Mork and Mindy, I've got to tell you. It's a very similar story. But there's all these things coming out and they're getting on the news now, right? And they've had the congressional hearings just before everything showed up in the sky. It's like it's playing out like a narrative for sure.
Yep. Agreed. So which means that some unexpected shit's going to happen soon.
Mm.
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
all right. Let me hit you a new concept, a new thought.
Okay. Let's
All
do
right.
it.
So obviously it's Egypt based, but it's based. I mean, obviously we've had a lot of, and Guy, Cam and I in the past have done a lot of videos with the theories that the pharaohs are the parasitic overlords of our current reality, that it all began in Egypt, that everything that we know about religion, about control and the fuck it upness of life as it is today, it stems from ancient Egypt, right? So I'm going to talk 5 minutes and refine that theory now, and we have a big chat about it, see how it fits. All right. Cool.
Mm.
Cool.
Here we go. Ready, gentlemen? Get your mental.
That's your engines.
All right. So, it's been our theory in previously that the pharaohs are the parasitic overlords of our current, not the reptilians, not this extraterrestrial group, but actually the pharaohs. Now, interestingly, the pharaoh stories, when you come here and start to examine it, starts well into the reign of the pharaohs, right? So their recorded history on the pharaohs and all these temples and all these statues and all the mythology comes quite late into the story, and it's written by the kings. This is where pharaohs morphed into kings. And as we know, kings are always the one writing the version of history, right? They're the ones that document it. So it's always in support and favor of that king. It's always skewed towards the king, right? The one writing it. But before then, Egypt was split into two dynasties, Upper and Lower Egypt. And the original pharaohs from that time, they have no knowledge on. They don't talk about it. They don't represent it. Nothing that's talked about in the temples of the pyramids are attributed to those original pharaohs, right? So we look at this as a concept. The gods, let's just call them the gods. But let's define the gods as attributing them with a race of beings, not us, coming in onto the earth at some time in our past, quite probably a long time ago. And they came down, and the story would be said by many different teachers that they were here in search of gold. They were mining the earth, right? You've heard that story before.
Yeah.
So being an advanced civilization, they decided to, or they went through the process of upgrading the human being to be in service to the gods, either as miners or workers or servants, to be in service to the gods, right? We've all heard this story. Yeah. In service to the gods meant that they had the genetic advancement that would enable them to manipulate or upgrade a human vehicle to take on board more advanced souls. So we're talking, that would be the Homo sapien reality, right? If you took the Cro-Magnon and the Homo sapien in and upgraded that version of events, and we start to get this version where they're upgrading the vehicle, the souls are trying to come in and it's not functioning and the vehicle dies, right? So if you're going to create a human body or a vehicle like this, you need to do it in a way that a soul can inhabit it. Because if a soul doesn't inhabit it, they die. The body will die. The vehicle's nothing without the soul. The soul is the life force that comes in. So a vehicle has to be created that will hold a soul, right? If you're upgrading a vehicle and you've upgraded the human mind, then that soul that comes in can be more advanced than the current souls inhabiting the Homo sapiens. But they can't be too advanced because they will blow the circuitry of the vehicle. Because if you're in a vehicle that has upgraded mind, an upgraded operating system, because the mind is just the operating system, and you have too much power running through it, the vehicle will die. Right? So it's quite I would imagine it's quite an advanced and very delicate act to upgrade a species. Now, in Egypt, of course, all the gods are represented by animals. So you've got Horus and you've got the Anubis, you've got the dog head, the falcon head, you've got the cobra, you've got the hippopotamus, you've got all these animals that represent the gods. So I've always understood that upgrade moment in our incarnation happened with the coming together of lots of the DNA coding from a lot of different non-human groups, which could have been the feline groups, the bird groups, the reptilian groups, And all of that came together and formed the upgrade, which may represent why the earth is so coveted and why it's such a contentious issue out there in the broader realm, because we actually hold the combination of all these DNAs. Maybe that's an idea, right? But let's go back to Egypt. So we've got these two dynasties pre what we know as the pharaohs. We've got these beings that came down manipulating the human DNA strand to upgrade us. And then we've got souls that have to come into those vehicles. When those souls come in, they have to perform certain tasks to be up to the task of serving the God. And if they don't perform, if they're not capable of doing that, then the scientist who made the upgrade basically, what would be the word? Exiled. Didn't want to kill the vehicle, didn't want to kill the soul in the vehicle, was kind and loving, just told them that, you know, go out there, fend for yourself. Here's some seeds. This is agriculture. Here's some tools so you'll survive, right? Which makes up the 5 different cultures of the realm, right? Potentially speaking, you know, brings it. So from many different teachers, I've heard that the ones that they got closest to that served the gods, the closest were the Chinese. And we know that the Chinese are very subservient. You know, they are a subservient race. They are in service. That's their general character, culture, if you like. Right. So imagine if all that's accurate, right? And when we've got all these people like, you know, populating the realm, but they're not in service to the God, but then you have got a group. And imagine if they landed on the group that were the Egyptians. And they landed on the Egyptian race, right? And they became the ones that ended up being closest to the gods, right? So then you've got the pharaohs, the original pharaohs, the ones entrusted with the knowledge directly from the gods to basically be in a position of leadership. Yes. And that leadership came with great knowledge, but that knowledge came with spiritual mastery and initiation, so that the human being in service to the gods were initiating themselves in fundamental energies of deep compassion and love, right? And that this was the origin of the Pharaoh realm. Except somewhere, and so if you were to, and so this would be true or accurate of us in leadership today. Like, we hate our leaders. We know the next one's going to be shit. We know the next one's going to be shit. That's why we can't even imagine that Trump's actually not shit, because there's never been any proof to us that once power is given to the next person, they're shit, right? Because in the original Pharaoh dynasties back then, and I'm just theorizing right now, to become the new leader, you had to out-initiate the old one, meaning you had to represent far more spiritual advancement, far more love advancement, far more compassion advancement, that you actually supersede the current leader and you become the new, which means the wisest elder amongst us becomes the leader. Doesn't that make sense, right?
Yeah, you know.
All right. Yeah. So I believe that in combination of power force, a force, an energy that was taught from the gods to be welded in support of this spiritual advancement. And when I bring up the vehicles, because the brain of the human being, have you ever thought it's really fucking weird that the human brain is split into 2? Like, that is fucking weird, right? That is just, why is the human brain split into 2? Have you ever thought? Oh,
no.
Because what does that do to us? It puts us, so one side's emotional, one side's intellectual, and we're always in an emotional intellectual conflict.
Yeah.
We're always fighting ourselves because our brain's split into 2. It's not a whole brain. We can't have a whole thought about anything because we've got 2 sides to our brain. It could be that happened in order to sustain the souls that came in that weren't advanced enough, hadn't owned the knowledge themselves to be able to use the brain properly. It might be like a default mechanism, right? To enable, because if you were to come in and be given a brain that was equivalent to a species that were like 500,000 years more experienced than you, like, your ability to weld and utilize the brain powerfully would be so different to a species that have just gone from being Neanderthals, basically, to being given this huge brain that we can't wield or yield or even know how to utilize. And the human, the God brain and vehicle can live for 100,000 years, 200,000 years. But in our reality, we live for 100 years because that's how much spiritual advancement we have connected to our brain. These vehicles have the power, if utilizing these brains to the max, to be essentially what we would term immortal. We can't do it because we can't use our brain properly, right? If reality is just creating reality using your brain, using your consciousness, we can't do it yet. We can't imagine it. We can't imagine ourselves that far forward. We cannot literally hold that thought. No one on this realm can hold the thought that you are going to live for 200,000 years. You simply are in emotional conflict on the topic. You cannot hold such big thoughts. You understand what I'm saying? If you are competing with yourself intellectually and emotionally at every single decision, you know, the ability to have a thought is really short term, because you might emotionally connect with the idea of being immortal, but intellectually you're like, hang on a minute, how's it actually going to work? I look around me and I see people dying all the time. I'm like, so you're always in conflict. You can't hold big thoughts. It says to me that, you know, we're still a very young species advancing right now. Sorry to take us down a notch, everyone. Sorry to take us down off the like pedestal a little bit, but we're still really fucking babies.
Oh, totally.
Understand how to bring
Really.
Okay, so back to my theory. That's a side note. Back to my theory. So somewhere along the lines, the pharaoh who were close to the gods, and the gods left, right? They left. The goddess the woman scientist who upgraded us was a woman. She was a woman, which was why we are always so fond of the goddess concept, that this archetype of the goddess exists, even though it's not represented with the pharaohs.
It's a Nana, right? Is that a Nana? Or
yes, but it's represented with
call a Nana, isn't it? Yeah,
all across the world. Athena, Ishtar, you know, Gaia, all of them. There's always one strong female goddess with a lot of love, because potentially she didn't kill us. She just like couldn't kill us once we were in the vehicle. So we hold this innate consciousness of loving the goddess. But, you know, so their gods leave, the pharaoh is doing his thing. Maybe the next pharaoh comes in and spiritually, you know, advances himself or herself and takes over his leadership. But somewhere along the line, the pharaohs, in their human beingness, in absence of the god's guidance, actually start to associate their leadership with a bloodline. And suddenly you get this idea of, instead of taking initiation to be the leader, you're actually trying to covet that leadership and put it onto your son, onto their son, and you actually form the original fucking bloodlines all the way back then. And then it's somewhere in the shift of how leadership should run, because that sort of leadership's advanced, right? And we've never known it on planet Earth in our lifetime. Having a leader that's there because they're the most spiritually wise, loving human beings on the realm. We've never experienced that. But my God, can you imagine the difference in what the world would fucking look like?
Yeah, they talk about that in the Vedas, that all the time the politicians were the wise people, the spiritually wise people.
That's right.
Yeah.
So, but then we get the human being comes into power, and the human being like covets the bloodline. And so when Campbell and I have spoken before about the pharaohs still running this world and being very parasitic and maybe not human, I now believe that they are human and they just coveted the bloodline, and we actually are still ruled by the bloodline. And I think it's been going forever. So once the bloodline got coveted, the powers switched from pharaoh to kings. And in that moment of that switch here in the history of Egypt, Upper and Lower Egypt became one. The king became the pharaoh. The king became the one being worshipped, not his attributes, not his wisdom, but just his power. That was getting handed down through the bloodline. They were marrying cousins. They were marrying their daughters. They were marrying their children. It all became, and the morphing of the two realms became a morphing of the species. And suddenly you get this introduction of transgenderism, super strong within the Egyptian hieroglyphics. Like super strong, like the sculptures is where the pharaohs start looking really weird. And I can show you some of these. I'll find them in a when I get talking.
Things to do with the hips and stuff, yeah.
Yes, the hips, man. All the pharaohs, all the male pharaohs, their hips go in above the belly button, like which is the female bone structure. The gods begin to morph, and you start to get this. And there was one female represented in all of these statues, and she was dressed like a man. She had a male beard on. She had the collarbone was straight. She was in the male presentation, but the men are in the female bone structure presentation. So you've got the origin of the bloodline concept, and then of course with that power, and then the war concept, all that at the same time. And then you've got this transgender things coming together. So then, in that moment, you've got the introduction in Egyptian mythology of Christianity. And Christianity apparently comes in, and it sort of starts to destroy the temples. It starts to like chip away at getting the hieroglyphics off and the gods. And you've got these Christian rosy Christian signs everywhere. And then you've got the Muslim connection. But they all sort of happen at the same time with this morphing into transgenderism. So then we got Baphomet, right? The ultimate transgender representation here in Christianity. And you've got this whole culture now aimed at it, and all the celebrities who are the bloodlines potentially of these old kings who are born into being transgendered and represented as the stars and the celebrities in the world as transgendered individuals, which will come out hopefully, fuck's sake. So you've got this whole process. So in amongst all of that, you've got these creations that involve technology, right? And on top of all of that, just to be really confusing, you get the introduction of Jehovah. So Jehovah sits in the middle of the Egyptian timeline, and Jehovah brings the biblical Bible. It brings Christianity, right? And Jehovah comes, the whole foundation of Christianity and the Bible is Jehovah. They refer to Jehovah as God. The whole foundation of the Jewish religion is Jehovah. The whole foundation of the Islamic religion is Jehovah. In essence, it's all the same moment in time. Yeah. And that being was a fucking psychopath and came in and with advanced technology and laid siege to the whole Middle East and the African realm. Killed millions and millions in the name of the God who was Jehovah, who is not God creator, but God of religion, Jehovah. So then we start to look at the idea that potentially Jehovah is a time traveler from the future that's come back wielding power and is a psychopath and has basically destroyed, empowered the Jewish, the whole Moses story about how in the desert for 40 years? You know that one? They were in the fucking desert for 40 years, right? Now that desert, that little bit where they were hanging around for 40 years, that takes 2 hours to drive in a car. That doesn't make sense, right? They were literally in the desert for 40 years, and then Moses came out, led his people to glory and victory. This whole issue with who owns the Middle East, and it's all coveted by him being empowered by God, Jehovah, to go ahead of him and destroy these cultures and bring them to their knees so that he could go in and besiege them and take over and literally kill. And it's in the Bible. It's in the Bible. Literally kill millions and millions of men, women, and child.
Like Sodom and Gomorrah, and there's so many towns that got destroyed, and a lot of them are still out there, and they look melted, man.
Yeah, melted. Yeah.
Whole Middle East looks like a war zone, doesn't it? So,
according to the Bible, this was a paradise, and it had giants living in harmony with the humans, and it was a paradise.
That's where we're told civilization started, right? And I always wondered, that never made sense. Why would civilization start in the middle of a desert?
Yeah,
that doesn't make sense at all.
No.
And from that moment, the Jews are empowered as the chosen people, and we've got Jehovah's people running the world to this day. You've got the Middle East and Africa forever in conflict and forever barren because, genocide doesn't sleep. So forever, ever barren, ever. And we've got this psychopathic God of the Bible, Jehovah, now literally running the realm. And there's a shift between, and Egypt falls apart. At this point, very close to this era, Egypt just starts to fall apart, and the reign of Egypt and the pharaohs comes to an end. It's replaced by Jehovah and the Jews, right?
The whole Christian story, it takes over pretty much.
Takes over, right? So this is where I think we sit today. I think we are now ruled by this bloodline that went through the kings of Egypt into the hands of Jehovah, into the kings of the Jewish Jehovah biblical context. And that is who we are now run by. So they are humans with potentially one psychopathic time traveler with technology. And it's interesting when you look at the Egyptian kings, they seem to have a technology they're wielding that makes them hairless. So potentially we've got this radiation impact on the human body from this technology. You've got the priests who are closest to the kings, the pharaoh, they're always hairless. The pharaohs and all the gods wear wigs. That's where we get the notion of wigs from. And makeup, that's where the introduction of makeup comes, right? I saw it in the Cairo Museum, the first lot of makeup attributed to Cleopatra, but like it's attributed to the pharaohs. So they're defining their face and their features, and they're wearing it to be more associated with maybe the human being that hasn't had radiation
Well,
potentially.
in the story of the fallen angels, they say it was the fallen angels, who taught man makeup, or women to paint their faces or something, it says. So that's, if that's the evil influence, then that lines up.
And then you got the introduction of the first mirrors also come out, which I saw in the Cairo Museum, also connected to the pharaohs in this timeline. So you've got this whole sudden presentation of reflected image consciousness. That suddenly you're reflecting yourself, the inversion, hence our last conversation about mirrors. So that's the timeline. You can see where that fits in. So like, it's just very interesting to now look, take away all the mythology of all of these temples. And by the way, I couldn't believe it, but I've been to like several of the biggest, most famous temples here in Egypt, like fucking insane. And they've been moved.
Yeah.
And they talk about it like nothing. Like they're like, in the 60s, we built a dam and we had to flood it. So then we had to move the temple. So we just built a new island. And then we just chopped it all up into 10,000 pieces. And we just moved it all over here and reconstructed it. If you were there without knowing that, you would have no idea that this hasn't been standing there for 10,000 years. Like, it's so obvious to me how history can just simply up and move relics and massive epic things and just have it done in a year or so and it never being told ever again. Like, it's insane how many temples in Egypt have been moved and reconstructed this way, which then removes the energetic field of that space.
They're on ley lines. So
then
they're lined, don't they?
Empty cell, Disneyland holds no value energetically whatsoever. But it's just like millions of tourists are going through there every year, and they're just like, this is just reiterating this version of story. But it's like they've been fucking moved, man. And if this is in the 60s, like imagine what has been moved and shifted and how actually advanced they are in doing that.
Yeah.
Big job.
Like you would look at these temples and think they've been etched out of the stone. 100%. You would never even think that wasn't the case. They just look so fucking old, and like they don't just move the temple, they move the stones that are around it. They play. It's just like a total replica, effortlessly.
What's the narrative for the decision to move them? Why are they saying they did that? Because as you were saying, they're built on ley lines. They align to constellations. Why by moving them they're no longer able to do what they once did?
Yeah, exactly.
Abu
why
moved because of a dam, and standing turned into a lake, basically a reservoir.
But why did they need to do that? Was there a reason for that? Was there an issue with water supply or flooding? Or
well, Egypt doesn't rain very much. They've got the Nile River, but the Nile River is the largest in the world, and it runs so many countries. But the rain comes from other countries into the Nile. So in Egypt, they split the Nile into two and built this big dam. And when they did that, it flooded a lot of the historical sites, I guess. But whether you can call them historical sites at this point, because like so many have just been chipped up and chopped up and reconstructed and moved. And, people say that on the Sphinx all the time, you know?
we saw that all through Europe again. Remember, we were calling them history theme parks at the end every time we went somewhere. It was always like, oh, here's another theme park, because even the ones that are original, they've been totally redone, recovered, you know, resurfaced, messed with. Like I think everything has pretty much as far as history, right? They even Stonehenge, right? They moved the blocks around in that.
Yeah.
You know, all of these places. So it's
So our version of history is just like it's
so,
it's Disneyland. It's a theme park.
yeah,
The Earth,
theme park,
yeah,
theme park
theme
Earth,
park.
man.
Yeah. So yes, coming to see all these sites has been fascinating and really great to see with my own eyes. But like, yeah, I mean, that's what I'm being left with right now. That I'm in some sort of Egyptian theme park, and you know, you just don't know was really there and what wasn't. And if you know, so it's been very altered and shifted and changed. But it's and I'm more convinced than ever that the God of all these religions is a fucking psychopathic entity, and he's the God of all the religions. Like I just feel like that's the
Yeah, well,
truth.
it was Abraham, wasn't it? Like, and all the religions we've got, all the three major are called Abrahamic because they all come from that one dude. And he was the guy, and Jehovah told him to kill his son, remember?
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
he's just about to do it. And he goes, oh, only joking, don't worry.
Yeah. What's that about? But instead, can you have a little play around with his foreskin for me?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, you don't have to kill him, just cut his penis. That'll do.
Yeah. What's that about?
Yeah. Yeah. So you've got like this. So the original pharaohs would have been acting in love and spiritual wisdom and compassion. This energetic is the complete and utter psychopathic opposite. Completely. It is the complete opposite.
Yeah.
So
and it's greed and it's all that. And remember, we did that thing, I think it was in a show we did last year, where we looked at the Bible, and it literally says in there now that God says his name is jealous.
Yeah. Yeah. Jealous.
He is a jealous God. Jealous. Yeah.
And now
you'll worship no other. Yeah.
It says my name is jealous, literally. So
and isn't the power, the energetic that follows jealousy, it's psychopathic behavior. It's control, it's power, it's suppression, it's delusion, it's
revenge,
like
getting people back, planning, and deception, all that kind of stuff, man.
So that's where I think our experience of reality has stemmed from. And now we're under the rule of these coveted bloodlines that stemmed from Egypt. Technologically, they definitely had some energetic they were working with that like was either given to them from the future. So it put them into like if a time traveler came, and why would we dismiss time travel? Because, you know, we know that like, you know, we're living in a constructed reality that gets presented and pushed out there as our perception of reality using our minds. Like, why would time travel be off the table? Like, to me, that makes so much sense. And if we had a time travel come in today from, you know, like the future wielding technology, they would have utter control and power, like utterly. Like we would not be able to, you know, have any sort of opposing force to that. You know, so that's where I think we now, and so Jehovah in our version of things is Satan and is God. And that's why these religions are so complex. Well, I think of all the religions, the leader, the God version of that religion, and the enemy, the Satan version of that religion, is the same energy.
Yeah.
Like the pharaohs. Yeah, like the pharaohs present gods. At the same time, they're the Satans.
Yeah.
You know,
the greatest trick the devil ever played was convincing us that he doesn't exist.
Yes.
You know,
exactly.
So why not pretend you're God? But I mean, there's a big narrative on, you know, aliens, time travelers too. So it's not a new kind of a concept. And we've got Project Looking Glass. Was it Montauk Project?
Yeah.
Experiment.
Yeah.
A lot of
Manhattan Project. Yeah.
There was even some priest back in, I can't even, like hundreds of years ago, who made some device, and he reckoned you could hear the future through it. So
not the chronovisor.
Yes, the chronovisor. That's it.
Yeah.
Good. Yeah. So
Campbell,
and all the movies, right? How many movies on time travel, man?
Yeah.
And all the time travel around Trump.
Yes.
Yeah,
From Trump.
absolutely.
Yeah,
Yeah,
exactly. Good point.
yeah,
So,
Yeah.
so that leads me to a concept. Like we're all kind of like questioning where Trump sits, you know, and how it relates to, you know, this love compassion grid reinstating itself on the realm. Potentially, Trump's bloodline has been connected with something from the future, which is empowering the choices that he is standing behind in alignment with what has to happen for the Earth to shift over and get rid of this parasitic realm. Maybe it may not make him, you know, originally a good person and very much stuck in the same parasitic wealth, like, you know, entity that he is, but he may have connection with something from the future, which has changed his trajectory, and it's changed his process, and it's empowered this revolution that's now at his fingertips that the world is sort of like watching and waiting for. So
yeah,
it has nothing to do with Trump as a man, but more what Trump has intercepted with potentially from the future.
yeah,
So you're saying that Jehovah came back in the past as a time traveler and inserted his nefarious beliefs and bloodlines and all that kind of stuff, and now a good entity has come back and is dealing with Trump, you reckon?
Well, I mean, something upgraded us, right? Some species, some group, some energy upgraded the human being. That happened. Like
Yeah.
we're not Neanderthals
yeah,
anymore,
yeah,
right? So we got upgraded somewhere in there. So something was working in with love, and that those original stories were empowering the leaders in love and compassion and spiritual initiation, which to me just means working out how to use the brain better. Like, let's just take the lofty la-la-ness out of it. It would just, spiritual advancement is simply you learning how to use your brain more than you do. That to me
yeah,
is true
yeah,
spirituality. It's not about, you know, putting up fucking statues and doing rituals around gods and goddesses or Jesus or anything like that. It's literally learning how to use your brain,
yeah,
you know?
yeah.
That to me
Enlightenment.
is, yeah, enlightenment.
Yeah,
And like, you
yeah.
know, got
Which
the
is
two.
referred to knowledge, isn't it? It's reference to knowledge. To be enlightened is
Always.
to have more knowledge.
Mm.
In
And one of the
Freemasonry, you know, you're enlightened. The higher the higher the degree, the more light you can see.
And maybe it's because you're generating more light.
Yeah,
You're generating it using your brain.
Well,
Except that
if we're electricity and we're running off electric circuits, then you would, right? Because you'd be
mm,
upping the usage, right? The voltage, whatever you want to call
mm.
it. So there would literally be more
And
light.
then you end up with a glow,
Yeah,
perhaps,
yeah.
an
and so
aura,
what
a brighter aura.
exactly. And it's always been spoken that way, that the more spiritually advanced you are, the more you can operate your brain, the
Mm,
bigger your energetic field, the bigger your influence. And it's interesting because, you know, we've talked about there being this shift from a negative charge to a positive charge. Well, you know, like think about what has happened since these pharaohs became kings and the reign. What happened was the introduction of, and the combination of Jehovah was fucking genocide and war. That was the
mm,
very first thing that happened massively, genocide and war. Before that, the humans that were sent out, outcasts, they just were surviving and creating culture. They were surviving. They were learning how to feed themselves and shelter themselves. It was quite basic behavior. But then we've got genocide. They weren't at war, is what I'm saying. And now we've got genocide and war. It's just being fundamental. We've never known a time without it. It's followed through all of our history. It's followed all of the religions. If you look at any single religion, including Buddhism, by the way, it starts with war and genocide every fucking time.
Mm.
And so that's a quality of this this psychopathic energy that's come in, right? So that's the one thing. The second thing is servitude. It brings servitude. So the equality goes because it's a bloodline.
mhm,
So there's like a coveted bloodline that are close to the gods. So you get the servitude and you get enslavement, servitude, economic enslavement, servitude in enslavement. And that follows the whole realm across every single culture. Suddenly, these free people are enslaved and in servitude to the gods, to the leaders,
mm,
to the king. And we
Mm.
have that energetic running today. And there's been a massive, like, so they've literally moved so many of these relics off their original power source or off their original grid point that they no longer function. They removed all the technology and tools and have done it systematically through every reset. where humans could advance themselves using the natural energetic grid of the earth. They've just like destroyed it every single fucking time. And war is really good for that because they can go in there and target areas and just destroy, all guys under some, you know, political bullshit. And so we've got this complete interference with the advancement of the human being.
Yeah.
Right? To this day. And suddenly, out of like appearingly nowhere in a second, the last 20, 30, 40 years, you've got a shift in the knowledge that's filtering through to humans. Our community has access knowledge that we've put together and it's filtered through. We're using our brains differently. So what has been the shift with how we can use our brains? Something has shifted, right? And it started a few decades ago.
Yep.
So whether or not we got to a point in our vehicles that we could, as more potentially, although I don't feel more advanced at all, may I just say, but potentially we came in with a slightly more advanced soul to inhabit the vehicle that enabled us just slightly enough to put our half of our brains together just enough to form a different version of reality. And just enough that we started influencing and making sense to millions. And just enough that those millions are dominating consciousness. Just enough that it's wobbled the status quo. And in just enough that we have freed ourselves. We're still in servitude in reality in our physical life, but our mental disposition has freed itself. Would you not agree? If we were to sum up the community, we've somehow harnessed more of our brain.
Yeah, well, I mean, just look at, again, places like TikTok and, you know, YouTube and everywhere, and it's just covered with theories now. Like everyone's got all these new different theories. They're doing research. They're putting it out there. And even 5 years ago, we didn't really get that bit on YouTube, maybe.
No.
But now it's like the thing to do, man. It's like, oh, this is mine. What do you think? You know? So that's new thought, like imagination. It's different thought, and that's going to lead us somewhere different.
So something about this shift in energetic, whether it be our bodies have evolved just enough or our souls have come down just a bit above it, we're somehow managing to utilize more of the left and right brain as a whole thought. And that to me is spiritual advancement, being able to have a whole thought and hold it. Because most of us can't do that, because once we have a whole thought, then one side of our brain starts arguing with it or feeling bad about it or it.
Is there a connection here with the pineal gland? Because if you think about it,
I think
when you're a child, your imagination runs wild, doesn't it? You see monsters under the bed, fairies at the bottom of the garden, and slowly it becomes calcified, and it all goes, doesn't it? The imagination changes, and you become more practical and unobvious, and it may be that the pineal gland in some of us is becoming more active. Maybe there's a link with that.
Well, I think it's Christ consciousness, right? And Christ, you know, in the Bible, Jesus talked a lot about becoming one, right? You know, balancing the feminine, masculine, but the two become one kind of concept.
Yeah.
The pineal's in the middle, so maybe the more you integrate your two sides, the more that turns on. And maybe, you know, the return of Christ that a lot of people are waiting for, the return of Christ consciousness.
Well, isn't that the fluid that it secretes?
The chrism fluid, yeah. Which is up your spinal column and basically into your third eye. And there's a lot of breathing techniques you can do that help that as well. So it's, and all these concepts that are coming out are pretty new, right? Like, new to us at least. Like there's a lot
new to us,
a lot of this stuff like that people would just laugh at and not even listen to are now being discussed, right? Like breatharianism and Christ consciousness and all these, you know, we've been talking about, you know, changing frequencies for years now. All this stuff, like go and talk to, you know, the older generation about that and they'll think you're crazy.
It's interesting though, because we were born. So when we were born, the consciousness around fluoride, for example, was already starting to become an idea. So, you know, for our whole adult lives, most of us have like neglected to use that. We've actively taken out fluoride from our reality, which is one of the biggest calcifiers of the pineal.
For sure.
So,
absolutely.
if your two sides of your brain are actually managing to form more holistic thoughts, where the emotions and the intellects are in harmony with each other, because we live in disharmony internally. We are beings that have internal disharmony, right? That is a big part of the chatter that goes on your brain. You're always making yourself feel terrible all the time. Oh, Mr. Sherlock Holmes, Campbell's back in Mulaney looking after Mr. Holmes.
Yeah.
Hello, mate.
Hello.
Yeah, I mean, if you're operating with a more holistic, and you're holding those holistic thoughts long enough and strong enough, what would happen? The pineal gland would actually be able to project forward a bigger vision with longer view. And if you can hold that bigger vision with longer view, you're spiritually advancing yourself. And to me, what this next couple of years, if I follow this logic, would look like is actually spiritually initiating yourself. Not make yourself subservient to a God or to a religion or to a Christ, but literally advancing your spiritual initiation. You know, and so there's so many different sorts of experiments and disciplines you could try to start working on how your brain functions. To me, that is truly initiation and truly the spiritual path. When I ate the acid and choked on the bread, and I don't know if you know this story, Guy. A long time anyway. Yeah, I took some acid. I ate bread. I choked on it. I was about to die. I couldn't breathe. No one was there rescuing me, and I was about to pass out. And in that moment, I went into, from one of my spiritual disciplines, the void. And with my my real and truly last breath, I screamed into that void with all of my last breath, I live. And that, as soon as I did that, it hit some quantum field and I was out of my body. And I was no longer breathing or snotting or struggling. I was just like the soul had removed itself from the body, and I was sitting there and my body was just poised. Like it was just stuck in stone, like a statue. Right? And like that, and then because I screamed, I'd had the knowledge and the training just enough to know that I could scream with my very last breath a command, not a request, not a prayer, not a like, please help me, God, please save me, God, but a fucking command. I live. In that moment, I survived and I came out of it. And, you know, but I was suspended in that space for minutes, 7, 8 minutes without breath. So in my mind, that was a spiritual initiation, because I held my life to an action and I commanded it. And like, one of the biggest fuck ups of religion is it teaches you to beg and ask permission, to beg from the God. Prayer is like that. Please look after me. Please look after my family. I need manifestation is like that. You know, this like prayer ritual thing to the God's going to have your favor, that you're doing the right things and you're already living well. It has your favor. So it's going to like, that is such a fucking delusion and so harmful as a concept.
Yeah. It's very de-empowering, right? You don't have the power. It's someone
very
else.
de-empowering.
Yeah, you've got to do the right thing.
How can you use your brain? How can you use your brain if you're being trained to ask permission, that you're being trained in servitude? The only way to spiritually initiate yourself is to command as a God, as the God being that you are, to command, not to request, but not to whinge, not to like prove that you're being a good person, but just to fucking command it. That's spiritual initiation. So for me, yeah, go.
I mean, that's what Jesus did, right? He did miracles apparently, and all these things that other people couldn't do. And he said, there's a verse in the Bible where he says, he's asked, how do you do these things? You know, blah, blah, blah. And he says, these things and more, so shall you do. So he never said that he was different and that he was God and that we weren't. You know, he said he was the son of God, but he also called everyone the children of God, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
So.
And that God is within you.
And God is within you. He literally says that. God dwells within you, for sure, man. Which means, you know, we're not saying that we're the creator God, but we've all got part of God in us, right? We're a fractal of God, or we've got it, you know. We're all part of God. So that makes us God, right?
If you're alive,
who's God?
Yeah, so
Oh,
and this is what school is, right? Our whole childhood, while we're learning what the world is, we're being taught you need to ask someone for permission. You know, if you want to go
authority.
to the toilet and you're at school, you've got to ask permission. You know,
Yep.
you've got to repeat back to gain the teacher's favor, right? Repeat back to them what they want, or they give you a big X,
Yep.
and then you're stupid. So
Yeah.
Yep.
exactly, man, we're indoctrinated into that whole
Yeah.
thing, right?
Well, that's a whole nother rabbit hole, the dunce's hat, isn't
Yeah.
it? And actually, what that really symbolizes, you know, that was wizards and magicians that were wearing those hats. And yeah, that's been completely inverted.
Oh, totally. Totally, man.
And we
Yeah,
don't
dunce hat.
Mm.
we don't even know how to operate without authority above us. How's the fucking that? Every
Mm.
aspect of our life is
Mm.
governed by authority above us. Everything but our own thoughts, once you start to use your brain a bit better. Everything else has authority over you, and you're trained at school just to accept authority. That's what it's all about. 12
Yeah.
years of
Yeah.
indoctrination in
Don't trust
accepting the
yourself.
authority above you. Do
Yes,
not
don't,
Enough.
demand.
Yeah.
don't trust
Imagine if
yourself,
you're at
trust someone
school.
else.
Mm.
Imagine if
People
you're at
don't
school
trust
making
themselves enough
demands.
to take the power back, do they?
No.
Like that, you know, you tell someone, "Oh, just don't listen to authority, or just don't, pay your taxes, or what." They don't trust themselves because they're so programmed into, "But I need permission. I need permission."
Mm.
So, and then it's even worse because in the culture around you, in your society around you, if you start throwing out commands, you'll be belittled. You will be taken down a notch by just your family and friends. Like, people do not like the energetic of commanding things because it goes against their programming of accepting authority. And that energetic came from the kings of the Egyptian pharaohs. It was all about that, which gave birth to all the religions that do that, to all of the leadership and the royal families, to the bloodlines that command it. That is how we now live our lives, you know? So it's just a really interesting version of our origin story is basically what I wanted to present today.
Yes.
Coming out of this around Egypt.
Yeah.
So who are we saying the pharaohs were then? Are we saying, because to me the pharaohs,
humans.
To me, but before, the people that actually put them there, the people that did all of this, are we saying that these are the Anunnaki, or what we would know to what we would refer to as Anunnaki?
Yeah, that same story.
Yep.
Yeah.
I would say that the one those beings that arrived on the earth from either out of the realm or wherever they arrived from, we don't know.
No.
The most consistent story that aligns with that is the Anunnaki, with Anu being the sort of commander in chief. So probably the head of the entity. And then you've got like Enlil and Enki, and the story of the Garden of Eden and the giving of the knowledge. And then you've got these gods being potentially put into areas around the earth, maybe. And then you've got the gods being close to a group of upgraded humans who became the pharaohs, but they were never not human. And it's been really interesting because I've seen a lot of mummies now, right? I've seen a lot of mummies, and they're tiny. They're just little humans. They're not non-humans. They're not giants. They're little humans in these little sarcophaguses that end up being like babushka dolls. They put the little human sarcophagus, the sarcophagus into another sarcophagus, and then they say they came from the pyramids, which is bullshit because the channels leading in and down to the pyramids are fucking tiny. There's no way you're going to be dragging this shit down into the pyramids. Like, the pyramids absolutely did not function wrapped around tombs for the gods. This is fucking bullshit.
No.
And there's
they've never found money in any pyramid ever.
No. And that's not what we were taught, is it? Well, I remember at school being told that they were tombs. But with regard to the mummies, so I don't know how far back this goes, but certainly in the sort of 50s, 60s, you could buy them. They were selling those on the streets in Egypt.
Yeah, they're also using them for fertilizer and stuff.
Yeah.
I think it was England. I think they were shipping them there to burn for like firewood and stuff.
They were the mummified cats.
Mummified cats.
Yeah, and thousands of them.
Like,
All right, so I just have to do a wee, but I want to tell you about mummification next and where that's come in this whole story. Okay, just give me a second. Carry on.
shall we carry
Talk amongst yourselves, boys.
on?
Okay.
You got the floor.
Yeah.
Right.
So from what Kelly's saying, that aligns with what I think, that the Anunnaki put the pharaohs in place. And then, as I understand it, Amun-Ra, or Marduk, which I think was Enki's son, when after he had caused what we would call nuclear war, followed by a second where he didn't win the second war. Apparently, it was a very close thing, and he fled. He disappeared, and when he did, he said he was leaving everything to the Ra Khans, the Ra childs. He was leaving the whole power of the world and everything to them, and that, as I understand it, as of now. So, by saying that, what I mean is, I'm always willing to take on board the fact that I'm wrong or there's some better information. That is where the start of the Rothschild family came from. And then you have the 13 bloodline families that are all related.
It makes sense, right? The children of Ra, the Ra childs.
Yeah.
And there was that whole story of they were called the children of Ra, wasn't it? Like one of the tribes that he went out and did something to. So, I mean, it's interesting that Egypt is we get told that's the oldest thing, right? Well, the oldest culture, but it just kind of, apart from Sumeria, I guess that's the cradle of civilization. But then we hit Egypt and it's already built and has a full culture. And it's not like we start at the start, it's like, Sumeria, they learned farming and they started, and then Egypt, pyramids and gigantic structures and gold. And so Egypt's a big part of it, I think. And that story about the Anunnaki or, whichever, but there's so many and they're basically all the same story.
They are. Yeah, all different cultures. I think even Native Americans and all over the world, they tell the same tale, but some say they came from the water, some say they came from the sky.
And underground, right? I think a lot of Native American ones say they come from underground. Is it grandmother spider or something? Or
the spider,
the spider grandmother, I think they called her, or something like that.
Yeah, and then some call them the ant people, don't they?
The ant people that they filtered with after like deluges.
The ant people appeared and showed them once again how to have a civilization. Yeah.
And then South America has it, which is a bearded white dude, basically like Veracocha or one of those kind of. There's a few different words, but there's always this story of, as well as like some kind of cataclysm or war or who knows what.
Yeah.
Someone else comes in and helps to rebuild.
Yeah.
So it's an interesting one, but I mean, I think what we do know is we don't know how to use our brains, right?
No, we don't.
We just
we really don't.
Who doesn't really know who we are, and they kind of say we've been here for hundreds of thousands of years, but we don't seem to be advanced enough for that, in my thinking, right? We're still just confused.
Yeah.
We don't know, we don't know what to eat. We don't know what we're, supposed to be doing. We don't know how to think properly. Much.
Do you think that that's indoctrination from birth? Really, the programming we're subjected to through TV, schooling, that is why we are like we are. That as Kelly said earlier, we sort of die in our infancy. Really,
it's definitely why we're not more advanced, because we're told not to think for ourselves, and if we do, you think for yourself in school, you're called stupid. It's actively discouraged to think for yourself. And I mean, if you want to talk about anything spiritual or like imaginary friends or whatever, they don't exist anymore. Sorry.
Take it
human.
Take it down to your actual experience. Like, I know that I believe that our community has a natural broader version of the side of their brain that holds the imagination.
Hmm.
You couldn't get to all of these thoughts that we've gotten to. You couldn't have got there without having a very active imagination that enables you to like have theories and weave information together that is not the narrative that we've been taught, and to pull in and create a new vision. A theory is just a vision, right? That's what they are, right? So when we say the word theory, we could easily say, this is my new vision. Right. And if you were speaking as a God being, you would actually say, this isn't a theory. This is my new vision.
Vision.
You
Yeah,
know,
good point.
but at school, it's more of a struggle, because I almost failed English at school, which is retarded now. Like, it's unimaginable, but I almost failed art, and which is also unimaginable. And the reason being is that I had this hyper imagination, right? So I was really good at presenting visions, but really bad at following it up with the grammatical presentation of how to present that vision in a format and a formula that would tick all the boxes to get an A in English. So like I think that's something that, so for example, for me, I'm really capable of having very strong, effortless visions, right? But I would struggle to write that down into a book like what you've done, Guy. I would literally struggle to do that, which is why this show is very good for the way my brain works, because we can just have these theories live as we're having them together. But to present it in a narrative from the beginning of that theory to where I currently am, and then to evidence all of that and to bring it, my brain would explode, because that side of my brain is less than my ability to vision it. So it's why I always am like, Cam, let's do a live event. Let's just get up and talk live, because we're both very good at presenting information intuitively. And whereas like to actually write it into a book, what you've managed to do is a combination of that vision and that sort of like other side of your brain that's able to go from left to right in a linear fashion to make it a narrative that you could read from and be presented with your theory.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So I mean, like as young people within our community, I would say most people would relate to that they were at school essentially not getting A's. They weren't like, topping the class, even though their imagination made them deeply superior intelligently. Like absolutely. If you were grading kids on their ability to vision things and to weave information together and to come up with their own unique ideas, the grading system would be completely reversed.
I agree, man. I mean, there's that, and I don't know if it's true, but what do they say? Like 100% of babies are born geniuses, but by the time they're 18, it's down to like 2% or something. Because they teach you not to trust yourself, not to up with these theories that it's a waste of time. You're just daydreaming, right? Stop daydreaming. You're just daydreaming. You're wasting your life daydreaming. I mean, that's where the power is.
Yeah.
How you create, right?
And all the creative things at school, the creative sort of like art, and they're always the career paths that a lot of us want to take. We want to do something creative, but we're always told that I went to art college, and everybody would say to me, "Oh, there's no money in it. There's no money in being an artist. You know what the chances are of you being successful, or wanting to be an actor? You know what the chances are of actually getting to Broadway or the West End? And there's just no money in it. The world's full of failed actors or struggling actors, and all artists are poor, and anything that involves the creative part of your brain is almost shunned at school."
Completely.
Yeah. Sit down and do your English and your maths.
If you want to be an engineer or a doctor, man, everyone's like, yes, good on you.
Yeah.
Yes, yeah, you. But yeah, if you want to be start a band or be an artist, it's like, come on.
Yeah.
You live in poverty.
When are you going to get a real job?
Job,
yeah.
Me, spiritual advancement comes down to forming a deep, unconditional love for people. Like, if you have a deep, unconditional love for people, you will take so much time to sit there and commune with people. I mean, we spend a lot of time just sitting around, apparently looking like we're being lazy bums, just talking, because the talking process with human to human becomes intuitive. When I used to work as a psychic, every single fucking time I did it, no matter what technique I tried, They would always end up 3 hours. Hands down, every single friggin' time. Because it took 3 hours for me to get to the heart of the matter intuitively to change that person's life. Right? So the podcast is a similar process. And I think because there's more than one mind on the topic, it gets quicker. But there's a process to deciphering the truth using your intuition. And you've got to speak it out. And there's so much power in speaking it out because you're telling your God this vision. When you speak things out loud, you're literally the mirror reflecting it back to your God. And so podcasts are so great for that because as the three of us speak it out, we're literally speaking it to our God. And so our God can hear it. And we've got command in it because we're not sitting here thinking, oh, I don't know if I'm right here. I don't know if this is right. We're not double questioning ourselves. We're in the conversation of intuitive commune. So in order to advance yourself spiritually, you need to give time and develop a deep love for conversation with people because it inspires and enhances your own intuition, which leads you through the gateway of your own imagination. And at the heart of your imagination is your God. The God that wants to use this brain of yours to envision a different reality. So we've lost Campbell to Sherlock there.
Oh, really?
Campbell, come on,
I'm
come
still
back.
here.
Yep. This is my dog,
Oh God,
Guy.
shit.
This is my big bullfed
Oh,
dog.
Yes, this is a little puppy, 12 months old puppy.
wow.
He's-
Oh,
he loves Campbell.
he
Anyway,
likes climbing as well, doesn't he?
he's more like, yeah, he's anyway, so we've got this idea of what is spiritual advancement. And when you go back to the original idea of the pharaohs giving knowledge to the humans that had been upgraded to serve them, and that the original pharaohs were about initiation and deep love and compassion. Like if we take that to now, like the advancement that we individually are going to achieve is by starting with the premise of communicating and loving human beings, people, to really get into that deep compassion and love for people will start to enhance your spiritual advancement, because through that you get a more advanced bringing together of the two sides of your brain. Because what would bring those two sides together? Would it not be deep love and compassion? Would they not be the bridge to bring intellect and emotions together? I can't see any other pathway that would represent that apart from love and compassion. Can you guys think of any other bridge that would be possible to bring your intellect and emotions together as a whole thought?
Compassion. I think it is. I think it is compassion, isn't it? Because that does encompass love, doesn't it? But I think it's compassion. Yeah.
And it's conversation, right? Because
Yeah.
actually communicating, especially, face to face with someone else, that's when you feel the compassion. You start to understand people, and you do get stories, and you've got to integrate that with your feelings about it and all this kind of stuff. And that's exactly what they're trying to stop, right? Interaction with the whole TikTok thing that got, resolved, but censorship and all this, we're not allowed to have proper, deep, true conversations.
No.
They don't want us doing that. That's what they seem to fear most.
Yeah.
Social distancing.
The social distancing, exactly.
Yeah.
I think
Yeah.
when you're in a state of compassion, what are you not in a state of? Like when you're in a state of compassion, you are not being power. You're not in a power hungry position, are you? You're not a warring position. You're not in a dominating position. You're not in a serve me position. In a state of compassion, you're in service.
You're in service.
In a deep state of compassion, you're in service to all living beings, really. In a deep state of compassion, you don't have conflict. You don't have competing sides or competing agendas. It like rises you above all of that. And when you rise above all of that, you're starting to bring the brains together, right? You're starting to bring that together.
The integration, yeah, I agree. And that's what, again, they've flipped it, right? Like they've got us to give love and compassion to, religions, right?
Yeah.
like God is love and all this kind of stuff, and all the you've got to love God, right? You've got to give him all your, and not creator God, but the small g gods. That's what they want, and that again cuts us off from growing spiritually, right?
Yeah.
So it's the whole thing is definitely to stop us, growing our awareness, right?
Yeah.
Understanding everything.
And like we were saying earlier on, look at who you're giving your love to in that sense, to a warmonger, a psychopath, an entity of sorts that's more than that's more than capable of wiping us out for any particular given reason on any particular day. Why would we be focusing all of that energy, the energy we need to enlighten ourselves? We are actually driving it towards a low vibrational, low energy being of sorts.
Well, this is elections, right? We elect parties and people to power. We give them our power. Like vote comes from the word vow. So we're vowing to give them our support, our power, our energy, and then they're all psychos. They want to start
Yes,
wars.
they are.
And whether it be an economic war or an actual war or whatever, or segregation, like they don't ever do anything that's beneficial to anyone except themselves, right? So all of our good energy and support and all that is going to these evil beings.
And interesting how it is that sorry, I was just going to say, interesting how we're
Okay.
giving them power, where of course power and energy, is that what we're doing? Are we giving them our energy?
Yes. Yeah, definitely. We're empowering them, right? Elect them between the polls at the polling booth, right? The polls.
Yeah.
And then we vote them into power. And they take power. Right. And they get that, so they become in charge.
Yeah.
Right. It's all the language is about this. So literally to be in power or to be powerful, they're taking power from the masses.
Yeah.
The whole, it's like the worship thing for gods and that, but just at a lower level, I guess. But I think that's completely what they're doing.
Yeah. Yeah. We vote them in to take our power.
Yeah. But we give them permission because they need permission, right?
Yes.
To do all this
stuff.
That's how they do it.
And think about what religion does to the human being, right? When you've decided to take a religion, what it actually does, like really subtly, it makes you narcissistic. Because really subtly, you're now seeing yourself as a good ... person, a good Jewish person, or a good Islamic person, or a good Buddhist, or a good Christian. No? And so you're holding up this idea of this moral code, and you're giving to the church, and you're doing all the right things, and you feel sorry and bad for all the people who aren't in your religion and how they're all going to hell. I mean, these are very narcissistic concepts, right? And you reflect yourself now in the eyes of this God. You look to this God to gauge your own reflection. Am I being a good person, a bad person? Do I have to repent for my sins? Do I have to pray for help? Where am I sitting in all of this? And you've got this narcissistic mirror going on, right? It's just really interesting that with that mirror reflection and the narcissistic energetic of our culture, you're reflecting back to yourself basically a separation from human beings. You are separating by taking on religion. You're separating yourself from humans, from people. And when you separate yourself from people, you can't form deep compassion. You can't form compassion. It blocks compassion because you're already narcissistically judging them as being separate or lower from you.
Yeah.
You're taking, and it doesn't matter the moral code, because it plays out differently in every religion. If you're, classic, if you're gay, you're going against God, you're less than me, sadly, you're all confused. If you're if you're like an Islamic practitioner, you've missed the point. You should be Christian, you're not getting it. If you're a Jewish person, you haven't understood the path to emptiness and non-attachment. If you combine all the mess around religion, it relates to basically making a narcissistic human being who is not in compassion to the human race.
It's very much I'm right, you're wrong. That's the core of it.
Yeah.
I found the right God, which means your God's wrong.
Yeah. I'm doing the right things, which means you're not.
Right. Yeah. But as soon as you believe what I believe, then you'll be doing the right thing and we can be friends and I can give you compassion. Yeah.
And my compassion comes out as feeling sorry for you. I
Yeah,
thought I just feel sorry for you. I feel bad for you. You know,
you're
that's
going to be
narcissistic.
in hell.
That is a
I just
narcissistic realm.
Yeah.
just thinking about something for a second. This a friend of mine mentioned this the other day. It's actually a podcaster, Richard Vobes. Your tobacco pouch. On there, you've
Yeah.
got a big sign that says, I think it says on your smoking kills, doesn't it? Oh no, my smoking causes throat cancer. Well, what if it is just seeing that and constantly your brain
Definitely.
Yeah,
seeing that
it is.
that causes
Yes,
the illness?
totally.
You
Yeah, when
will
they
it
brought it
yourself.
when they brought it in Australia, within the next 6 months, smoking related illness went up.
Yeah.
Yeah.
In
So
The
this,
Australia,
only
they show us
difference is
pictures.
people are then going, "This is bad for me. This is going to give me lung cancer. This
yeah,
is
Yeah.
going to give me this." Yeah, it's
In
programmed.
yeah, sort
Australia,
of self-fulfilling prophecy.
Yeah, for
in
sure.
Australia, they went
Yeah.
from all these coloured packets. So this is not Australian. Into these brown packets, and they put these
Yeah.
ghastly images onto it. All the Australian tobacco pouches look like this.
Mm.
They're brown, they've got this big headline, and they've got some ghastly visionary influence. And yet I truly believe tobacco is actually a preventative measurement that actually stops their agenda, like breaking into your freaking brain. I think tobacco blocks
Absolutely.
a lot of their poison.
Mm.
Yeah. I mean, look at
Of
the
course.
pandemic that we're not allowed to talk about still. That they say that people that smoked recovered faster.
Yes.
They weren't affected in the same way.
Mm.
We
Yeah.
can we can operate at higher altitudes.
Yep. Yep. I saw a doctor talking, and this allegedly YouTube allegedly, and he had like people with the whatever we want to call it, the V, and they were all smokers, and they were doing, what was it? I think they were doing better than everyone else, and so he sort of
Yeah.
found out they were all smokers, and he went, "Oh, I wonder, because they can't smoke in hospital." And he sort of went in and goes, "Do you guys want, some nicotine? You've been here a while." So he put nicotine patches on them.
Yeah.
They all walked out of the hospital fine within like 2 days,
Yeah.
Yep.
where
And I
everyone
think that is
else
one
has
example
just
of many
stayed there.
things.
Yeah, there's lots of them. So there's some, and this is why again they put so many chemicals in them. It's
Mm.
by organic guys, because
Yeah.
what they're trying to destroy, right? They know that it's something good, so they,
Yeah.
and they're
Poison it.
addictive because of the chemicals too. By the way,
Organic is only what you want to smoke. Tobacco and water.
yeah.
The organic tobacco in Australia went up overnight to $100 a pouch.
Oh
It had a
wow.
$30 to $40 increase overnight. None of the other tobacco did, but the organic one got penalized.
I
But
bet it did.
like the only one you smoke. If you're going to smoke, don't smoke fucking cigarettes. You'd be a fucking dickhead. You'd be a dickhead to smoke cigarettes. Roll organic tobacco. But look, back to the conversation about narcissism. I believe that you cannot take, yeah, exactly, American spirit. You cannot take spiritual initiation once you've become religious. Once you've
Right.
become religious, you are no longer able to spiritually advance. I believe that because I truly believe the only way you can spiritually advance is to fall into a deep sense of compassion. I do not think you can get there anywhere else. And the original pharaohs that we don't have no knowledge of today has been wiped out of history by the kings, was doing just that. They were the elders amongst us. They were literally the elders that were rooting themselves in such deep compassion and love for human beings and all living beings. They couldn't be corrupted. They had no interest in the corruptible tools. But if you're in a religion, it's so easy to corrupt you. It's like so easy. By default, you're corrupted by it.
God commands you to do this. God told me you need to go and kill your baby, Abraham. So
Yeah. Yeah.
Go do it.
So this is, yeah, I agree. I mean, the thing is about religion is it makes you judgmental. You've got to judge, right? It's all comes from judging. You judge that that's the right religion, that that's the right
Very
God, that that's
narcissistic.
the right story, that they're the right church, whatever. But as soon as you judge something as right or wrong, you can't learn anything more in that field, right?
No.
Because you know the answer. You've
Yes.
already found the answer, right? So you stop. So it definitely stops any spiritual advancement until you start, and some people do, right? They start asking questions again, and that's when they can move on. But yeah, I agree, man. Religion is it's just a form of control that literally leaves
Yeah.
us powerless.
Yeah, because if as soon as you enter a religion or take a religion on as your own, you're instantly in judgment of every single other person. Instantly.
Yes.
And
Yeah.
yourself. And yourself.
Yeah.
You
And
know,
yourself.
yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
You
And
know,
yourself.
you've got to apologize every night in your prayers. You know, I did this. I was
Yeah.
a bad human, and oh my God.
You
And
got to pay for it.
yeah, you got to pay for it. You know, you're not allowed to just make a mistake and learn from it. You know, no, sorry. You got to give
Yeah.
homage to the God who
You
created
got
you
to try to
perfectly, by
convince
the way.
everyone. You got to try to save everyone. You got to save everyone. You got
Yeah,
to try to convince everyone that,
it's
you know,
like
this is the
Amway,
path.
really, isn't it?
Yeah. And you feel really bad that they're like trapped in this like delusion of another religion, or they're
Yeah.
trapped without it. Yeah. And you feel really bad that when the end times come, no matter what religion you're in, all those other people are going to die and you're going to be saved, but they're all going to die. You're instantly in a state of narcissistic judgment.
Mm.
Instantly.
Yeah.
And judgment can only happen when the two brains are completely split in half. Religion is the result of our brains being split in half and having done not the work to bring them back together. The only way you can get there is through a state of compassion, which is why whenever we get to the like big stadium event, we are going to, that whole event is geared towards bringing the audience on a journey to get them to the highest state of compassion. If we were to define it even clearer, we want an event where we can bring together the two sides of the human brain in a moment, in a big enough group, that we emanate a keynote, a frequency of compassion for all living beings.
Mm.
That is something that hardly gets touched on in our current state of affairs.
Mm. Yeah.
Some people say that's what this reset is about, don't they? They say that this reset isn't, you know, I'm hoping the end of New World Order. And if we follow the religious train of thought that this is it, we are in Satan's, you know, short season, and he has a 250-year season to, you know, wreak havoc, that's over any minute now. So is the reset actually a shift in enlightenment and a raising of vibration and frequency? Is that what this is about? Is that what is going to happen as we come out of this? Are we going to rise?
Yeah.
I think what's going to happen is there's going to be fucking the disclosure side of things, the breaking down of the grid, so to speak, of the power grid is going to push, and it will come at the hands of really stressful events. So one thing Ramtha would always say to his audience is that this is a school based on stress, that stress is what causes evolution, that you need to be in a state of stress in order to evolve quickly. And we have spent our lives avoiding stress at all levels. Like we try very hard, comfortable enough to avoid the stress, to get rid of the stress. But stress is actually what creates it. So if we are in a time, a chaotic time on this realm, which I think is what every reset is, where stress happens in great ways, like massive natural disasters, massive situations in your everyday life that causes a great deal of unexpected and not know how to cope with stress, then you're in a state where you would naturally be able to form a new level of compassion. Because when your house is burnt to the ground and then all these people are helping you, you suddenly feel compassionate. When you're in a situation where you're in a very hard time, you know, you're relying on people, not governments, people. And those people create in you a level of, hang on, sorry, it's going to decline that, a level of stress, which brings about a level of compassion. So I think the shift is going to be about putting us, the human race, under great stress. And I think it's going to happen to everyone. And it's going to happen at the collapse of all sorts of things and natural disasters and man-made disasters. But it's going to create stress. We're going into a stressful time because to go through a reset and an evolutionary step, you need to be stressed. And you got to come out of it returning to a deep love and compassion for human beings and all living beings, right? I think that is more of the shift when they talk about, you know, this ascension pathway. I don't think it's just like blip, which is descended into frequency and realm. I think that comes to do that. You've got to be fucking stressed out of your brain for whatever reason, and you got to fall into what's left, which is just compassion for every single person that's helping you get through this. Right?
So do you think it's connected to desire? So the reason that this shift happens is because You want you almost, your hand is forced. So rather than just living in this sort of, like you said, trying to live stress free, suddenly a series of events take place where you have no option now other than to open your mind, kind of.
100%. And I think that's why they always say that the healers of this world are going to be set up in this time to like really do their real work, which is to help through love and compassion all living beings get through that stressful time. And whether it comes at a combination of disclosure, a combination of collapses, a combination of natural disasters, it's going to get fucking stressful. And you are going to be so enamored by the humans in your life that help you get through that, whoever they are, at the continent, religion, culture, creed, whatever they are, all that shit's going to disappear. Because if you're in a great sense of duress and stress and you've got people helping you get through that, you're going to just be in love with people again.
Yes,
right?
that's true. So true. Yeah. Yeah.
And that's going to be what creates a shift in the frequency band. It's why all resets come with massive stress, massive stress points. Collapse comes with stress. So like if I was to advise anyone listening to this, the work that you should be doing right now is to precede all of that and start doing whatever techniques and practices you can bring into your life to increase and harness your state of compassion for all living beings. Like really start to work on that and connect that with your vision, your theories, connect the theories with compassion. And if you start doing that work now, you'll be so much better, well equipped to deal with what's unfolding in front of our eyes as we go through this reset, right?
Totally. I totally agree with that. Yeah. I mean, because otherwise, what are you going to do? Like, one of the choices to blame, which it's not my fault. Why do they do this to me? Or to step into compassion, right? And then
or to beg, please, God, save me.
or to beg, yes.
Beg, please.
Well, we have
In your
become,
favor,
we've
God.
got a real victim culture going on there, haven't we? Where people spend their life blaming every single thing that goes wrong on someone else.
Yeah, it's always, man. And it can be, something that happened yesterday or something that happened 50 years ago. And they just bring it back into the present every day by reliving all these, how hard done by they were.
Yeah.
And they tend to forget that, there's some people out there who have done it much, much worse than anything we could think of, right? I mean, like to live in a first world country and have, a house and food and all these things and friends and no war. And I mean, you're doing pretty well, but people still love to focus on why they're so hard done by. I don't.
Yeah.
Which is where narcissism comes in. The West is narcissistic because we've got a little bubble around us that has made us comfortable. So we become narcissistic. The people here, they're in poverty, man, and they like struggle every day to find enough work to earn enough money to feed their families, and so they're hustlers. There's a lot of hustlers, hustling, always hustling, so they've got a different level of narcissism, but it's like the stress is different, So like in the West, we have these like little narcissistic bubbles around us. So, we're preoccupied by, is my skin still looking nice at 50? Ooh, how do I look now? Ooh, what a close. It's so narcissistic. How's my hair today? Am I living my true potential in my career? And I'm making enough money. There's such westernized stress points, and they're so focused on the individual,
it's so shallow,
separate
isn't
self.
it? Cars are going to be old. I think I need a new car. Like that's the best imagining and creating that people can come up with, right?
Yeah.
Oh, I think we'll remodel the lounge room. I mean, that's so shallow and just nothing, right? It means nothing. Oh, so yeah, we've probably been turned into a program that way. But yeah, I agree, man.
Yeah.
It's the poor little me culture, right? When
that's it.
When literally people
we don't even know we're doing it.
And we no.
We don't know. It's so subtle. We just do it every day. We do, the three of us do it every day. And it's subtle and we do it every day.
Oh yeah.
Even just
of course.
Yep. And it's just like it's so ingrained in our culture. But I'm pretty certain that every single time you turn the reflection back onto yourself in a judgmental way, you're being a narcissist. And in doing that narcissistic act, you're separating yourself from the rest of humankind, because all you're caring about is, you know, how your hair looks today, or if you get, like, you know, like they and that subculture of narcissism actually prevents your spiritual awakening. So and spiritual awakening to me is getting to a state of compassion and starting to operate the brain properly, which means our live events from here on in, we have to work out how we collectively, coming together as a group, each and every live event, can bring the group to a state of actual compassion. It shouldn't just be about sharing our theories and visions. If we're to do the work at a much, much greater level, we need to be getting to a state of compassion. And from there, we start connecting as a community, you know, because that is where we're going to start activating our brain, and the true evolution, the true awakening is going to take place. It's not going to be about us working out the truth, as it is about working out how to be compassionate again.
Yeah.
Where did narcissism, so, like, we talk about narcissism a lot, and you hear it now all the time. Everybody's always saying, oh, this person's got narcissistic traits. But when did that come from, well, sorry, when did that evolve from being someone who fell in love with their own reflection to being someone who's just got very strong opinions? Or when did that shift happen? Because I hear it all the time, people saying, oh, this person's a real narcissist. And I think, well, now, having sort of looked into it recently with you guys, that I think, what, did they look in the mirror a lot?
Yeah, that's...
We're talking two different languages.
Yeah. Definitely, I think it's about 2 or 3 years. It hasn't been that long that everyone's suddenly using it as a catchphrase. But like you say, it's people basically saying, oh, this person doesn't believe exactly what I believe, so they're a narcissist.
Yes, that's
I get called it all the time.
In a nutshell, yeah.
I get called it a lot. And I think from my perspective, it's because I speak
Well,
with
I've heard
such
people calling you that.
voice. Yeah.
I haven't really.
I definitely do. And it's because I think that my natural disposition is commanding versus pleasing and begging. Like, I just have a natural command in my voice. And it really does drive people mental, because the opposite is to beg, is to somehow beg for permission, right? So it's just a shift in the way that we're communicating.
When you command, the people who are begging suddenly realize that they're beggars. That's what they don't like. Yeah.
And maybe what they're hearing is passion.
Of course it is. That's all it is. But people love to judge and don't like,
don't they just?
Tall poppy syndrome in Australia. Like, you can't get further ahead of me, or else that means that I'm worse. And it's this whole thing of, if someone's better than me, that makes me worse. But that's not how it works, right? That's just self-reflection and narcissism, really, right? That's narcissism. That's looking at yourself and to a negative aspect of it.
Guys, the cleaners arrived. I have to. You guys can keep talking, but I'm going to have to sign off, sadly. But I think we got to a really interesting conversation there. It definitely part 2 to the mirror conversation we've just had. I don't know if you guys have realized that, because the mirror conversation left us on the tonalities of narcissism, and now we can see that flowing through this bloodline of kings, because all the people who were put into servitude had to witness the gods upholding themselves in a very separate, very narcissistic way, that the true reverence came to them through the gods. It's very narcissistic. We have never seen a representation of true compassionate leadership ever. We've never seen, and that's why I think the return to the elders, the indigenous elders around the world, is much closer to the key note of compassion for all living beings than any other form of leadership we've ever seen ever. And we're annihilated, right? All right, before I ramble on and go into another theory,
right.
You guys keep going. If you
I think that's about
before you go, Kelly, we've talked quite a bit about the brain having 2 hemispheres, and why is it like that? Have a look at the walnut.
Yes. It's brain food. Fractal foods. Yeah, man.
It is, and looks just like the brain, doesn't it? 2 hemispheres. It's
very good for the brain too.
Yeah, yeah. And I
There's
think
heaps of them.
sometimes there are some
Mm.
things out there that do
Like
that. But the
tomatoes
heart,
have 4 chambers. Yep, they're red. They're
yeah,
the size of your heart. Like there's
kidney
tons of food.
beans, carrots with the eye.
Carrot with
Yeah,
the eye. Yep, snap it in half.
yeah,
It's like an eye.
yeah. But I just kept seeing
Well,
walnut. I keep seeing walnut while Kelly was mentioning the
yeah.
two hemispheres. I
There's
just the
definitely a lot
walnut.
of information about the fact that agriculture and our food were given to us by those original gods. So
Yes,
that would make sense.
to
It
help
mirrored,
us know.
Yeah,
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 what
yeah.
works, what
That's a good
fixes,
point.
what.
What's
and
good
Yeah.
for
essentially
what? Yeah.
with Adam and Eve in the Garden of Eden, like you know, that whole idea was them like seeing what they could eat and what wouldn't hurt their
Mm,
digestive system, taking them back into the lab and fixing up their digestive system, tweaking that food until there was a food source to power this new human vehicle. So I think our
mm,
foods reflect the medicine that sustains the human being from
mm,
presented to us from, you know, advanced entities.
Mm.
All
mm.
right, I love
Yeah,
you, and feel free
cool.
to like,
I'm gonna
I'll
jump
just sign
so
off.
we're
You
gonna have
guys finish.
dinner.
All right, we're all good.
Yeah,
All
so
right.
good
And
luck.
I
Bye-bye.
apologize for speaking so much today. I did speak a lot
You spoke
today.
a lot, but that's
And
all right. Very,
and I'm in
very
Egypt, you know,
wise.
to come out somewhere.
You bloody narcissist. Jeez, man. Yeah.
All right. Have a beautiful week, everyone. And we'll
Yes.
be tuning in next week, probably from a beach somewhere near the Red Sea for
Oh,
me.
Oh, wow.
nice. Awesome. Yes, guys. Thanks
All
for
right.
joining us. Give us a like, subscribe, all that kind of thing. Share it around. Link for Guy's book in the comments below. Go and buy it. And buy a t-shirt.
Mwah.
T-shirts. Buy t-shirts.
Buy a
Yes.
t-shirt. T-shirt.
All
All
right.
right. Lots
Love
of
you
love.
all. See you guys.
See you guys.
Take care.
Bye.
Bye-bye for now.
Bye.
Bye.